This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez, as we turn to Nigeria, where up to 400 people were believed killed last week in violent clashes over disputed election results in the central Nigerian city of Jos. Christian and Muslim protesters took to the streets Friday, killing people, burning down homes, mosques, churches over what they said were rigged election results. At least 7,000 people were forced to flee their homes. Authorities imposed a curfew over Jos, and security forces were reportedly given shoot-on-sight orders. For more insight, a few days ago, I spoke to Nigerian activist and journalist Omoyele Sowore. Sowore has been arrested and tortured by the Nigerian military. Now here in the United States, runs the website SaharaReporters.com.
What has happened in Nigeria is that since 1999, when we had this return of democracy, so to speak, there has been consistent violation of democratic tenets and principles, especially election rigging. And the Nigerian people have not had a chance to choose their leaders, and also have not had a chance to express their anger whenever the few cabal who run the country, members of the ruling elite, decide to turn elections against the choices of the people. So you now have a country that is filled up, or like I said, that's doused in gas. And anytime there is a little violation of these democratic tenets and basic civil rights of the people, it escalates in ways that nobody can imagine, very fast, very quickly, and very seriously.
And what exactly happened?
This time around, there was an election that took place, a local government election of all elections, and somebody who was supposed to win by 58,000 margin was denied victory, and the reaction was instantaneous. Don't forget that even the current president had the same experience. They rigged the election. The elections in 2007 April were so bad that on Sahara Reporters, we got election results 24 hours before the elections took place. That is the kind of things that you saw led to what happened in Jos. But I'm quite disappointed that he got a kind of miserable coverage he got in the mainstream media in this country when Mumbai, where less people died, got,
Right. Well, it was much more conveyed as a confrontation, a religious confrontation between Christians and Muslims.
That is where I was expressing disappointment, is that nobody has really spoken to the root of the problem. That is the fact that Nigerians want real democracy, and they've been denying this consistently since 1999 in recent times, of course, their entire life. And the sectarian part of it was the interpretation given to the crisis by the people in government, not what happened on the ground. So, but my analogy is that, like I said, if a house is doused with gas and any part of it catches fire, the part with most gas will, of course, burn faster and more seriously and perhaps more fertile. Are
the Muslim and Christian communities at odds with each other?
I don't believe so, because the reason is that the crisis has now been extinguished. If it is true that it's a Muslim versus Christian thing that they want us to believe, the crisis could not have been contained, because you're talking about 50-50, almost, roughly, the population of Christians and Muslims in Nigeria. What I'm saying, and what we should not lose sight of, is the problem is justice in Nigeria and poor leadership. We shouldn't lose sight of this.
It was the Muslim party, the predominantly Muslim party, that got denied the election, and the
truth is that there's no political party in Nigeria that's predominantly Christian or Muslim. The parties in Nigeria, the major parties, are predominantly greedy people.
Do you think the violence will continue now?
For as long as there's injustice in Nigeria of any democratic type, you cannot predict what will happen in that country. That much I can tell you. If there is justice, of course there will be peace. There's no question about it. It's as simple as that.
Omoyele Sowore is a Nigerian activist, and he runs the website SaharaReporters.com. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. Juan?
Well, a new report by the Committee to Protect Journalists has more internet journalists are jailed today than journalists in any other medium. At least 56 online journalists are jailed worldwide, according to CPJ's census, a tally that surpasses the number of print journalists for the first time. The number of imprisoned online journalists has steadily increased since CPJ recorded the first jailed internet writer in its 1997 census.
Our next guest traveled to Iran, to Egypt, Syria, Saudi Arabia, Cuba, and China in 2007 to look at bloggers around the world. He is Anthony Lowenstein. He wrote The Blogging Revolution. Welcome. Talk about blogging in these countries, why people are ending up in jail.
The bottom line is that many people in these countries, of course, can't rely on state-run media, which is propaganda. Bloggers and blogging is a way to try and express different views. So in every country I went to, except for Cuba, where the internet is very underdeveloped, you have situations, people are blogging about sex, about drugs, about gender issues, about politics. The majority of people in these countries don't blog politically. They blog about their personal lives, about their boyfriends, their girlfriends. But there is increasingly, as that report states, many regimes who are fearful of the fact that you have independent voices, simply put. In China, for example, I think it said there were 35 people who were imprisoned. Many of those people, some of those people, I should add, with the assistance of Western multinationals like Yahoo, who have actually given information to the regime to assist these people being put in jail. Google, Yahoo, Microsoft, Cisco, other security firms, internet firms have sadly and shamefully been involved in these kind of complicity acts, and it seems one of the things I discuss in the book is to actually have more transparency about how those guys actually operate in those kind of countries. A place like Iran, say, most population are very young. So what you find is that despite like Ahmadinejad cracking down on dissent, which has undoubtedly happened in the last 3 years, you still find a very vibrant online community, far more vibrant than you get in most of the Western media. So there is, despite the crackdowns and despite the imprisonment, discussion about politics between reformists and liberals, and for that matter, conservatives. And one of the things that comes out, I think, very clearly is that many people in these countries resent how the Western media reports them. New York Times, those sort of papers.
Well, even in Iran, you noted that there's an American company there, Secure Computing, that was providing a filter for for Iran to be able to filter out information on the internet.
The company denies it's involved. So, but my understanding is that they actually are involved, and this is what you find in country after country. That although Western multinationals often talk about human rights and democracy, we've seen in the last 5 years these companies actually operating to make a buck. China is, for example, the biggest internet market in the world. 250 million users, 6 million users going online every month. America's got about 230 million people, roughly, online. So surprise, surprise, they want to make a buck. And what you find increasingly is that companies like that are also moving into other nations. And one of the things I discuss in the book is we too much in the West think about these issues happening over there, somewhere, China, Iran, rather than happening here. And I think what we need to look at more closely is how these companies might operate when they behave in the West, and for that matter, are they exporting their oppression elsewhere as well?
What about Saudi Arabia?
Saudi Arabia made Iran seem liberal in comparison. The online community in Saudi Arabia is not massive, but certainly growing. I spent some time with some prominent bloggers there who are relatively liberal in a Saudi sense. And one of the challenges they have, that censorship actually in Saudi is quite minimal, believe it or not. There are websites that are blocked by the kingdom, but most of them actually are relatively available. What you find there is a great discussion between so-called liberal reformers who actually want to try and make the possibility of a liberal, more open Islam a possibility. And there's often a great deal of competition online between more hardliners and conservatives who believe in a more fundamentalist interpretation of Islam, and more individuals who believe in a more liberal, open, relatively democratic Islam.
Egypt?
Egypt, again, arguably the most vibrant online community in the Middle East. There's been a great deal of actually change there because of the internet, not least because of torture. Torture videos that are increasingly now published on blogs. The government has been forced to respond. Torture still goes on, of course, but it's becoming a lot less. And one of the things that strikes me is that a lot of social networking sites, Facebook, YouTube, actually are increasingly being used to organise dissent against the US-backed regime.
Well, Anthony Lowenstein, I want to thank you for being with us and writing this book. I know you head back to Australia tomorrow. The Blogging Revolution is the name of his book. He'll be speaking at Blue Stockings in New York tonight. You can go to our website for the contact information, democracynow.org. And I'm headed to Sweden. I'll be speaking publicly on Tuesday night at Stockholm University, on Friday night at Berlin at Humboldt University. You can go to our website for the details on that. And we'll be broadcasting from Stockholm, Sweden. Next week, we'll be interviewing the the Right Livelihood Award winners on Monday, talking about the Nobel Prizes on Tuesday, and then we'll be broadcasting from Germany, among the places Berlin. And that does it for our show today. Democracy Now! Produced by Mike Burke, Shufo Dokadu, Sarah Mate, Angelique Comet, Steve Martinez, Nicole Salazar, Hani Massoud, Robbie Karen, Mike DeFilippo, Miguel Noguera, Peter Curry is our engineers. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. Thanks for joining us.